Welcome to the TeacherCast Educational Network, coming to you from the TeacherCast studios since 2011. Join us each week as we bring you the latest educational news, EdTech updates, and hottest interviews with today's most influential leaders in education. And now, for your host, Jeff Bradbury.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the TeacherCast Educational Network. My name is Jeff Bradbury. Thank you so much for joining us today and making TeacherCast your home for professional development. This is Digital Learning Today, a brand new podcast from the TeacherCast Educational Network. Today, we're going to be talking all about online education. I have a very special guest coming on. He's the superintendent from the California Online Public School System, and we're going to be deep diving into what is a public school system doing online these days. What does it look like? What does the staff look like? How can students be successful? We are going to go through the entire educational process. Stick around. This is a great interview with an amazing educator. Hope you guys have had the chance over the last few days to check out the brand new TeacherCast. We've got a ton of new blog posts up on the website. Our 3 podcasts, Digital Learning Today, Ask the Tech Coach, and also the Jeff Bradbury Show are going stronger than ever. Lots of great interviews coming up and lots of great interviews that have already been dropped over the last few weeks. Don't forget to find us over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere that you get your podcasts. We've got a lot of great content coming out, and I hope you guys have a chance to check out teachercast.net. My guest today has more than 20 years of experience in education. He's currently the superintendent at the California Online School. I want to bring on today Dr. Richard Savage. Dr. Savage, how are you today? Welcome to TeacherCast.
Doing very well, Jeff. Thank you very much for having me. It's just a joy for me to talk education.
Thank you so much for your time today. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. We're talking today all about online education. And today, I'm excited, Richard, because you are the superintendent of an online school in California, spanning more than 32 different counties. And you have students all up and down of California that you're working with. Talk to us a little bit about your school. What is the California Online Public School System?
So basically, there's a law in California that governs who we can serve, right? We call it the contiguous county law. And so we have to be strategic in how we open up our schools and what we do and where we go. As an example, one of the most more common or more popular counties, Orange County. We have an authorizing school district in Orange County, San Juan Capistrano Unified. And because of that, we can serve any student that lives in Orange County and then any county that touches Orange County. So you go San Diego, Riverside, San Bernardino, and Los Angeles. So that's a large school. It's our largest school of the 6, and it serves students that are on the Mexico border all the way up to, out in the Antelope Valley, Lancaster and Palmdale, right? And so what we then do is we find another partner school district that wants to work with us, and we also look at the county map to try and make sure that we maximize our resources. And so to make it short, we have 6 different schools all the way up to Lake County and what's above that. And then we go as far east, we go all the way to, we don't go all the way to the Nevada border, but we get pretty close. And so we're up and down and everywhere. And the idea is we want the opportunity to serve as many students as we possibly can. We want students to be able to come to us and think of us as a school that is going to best meet their needs.
And when you say you've got schools in these areas, these are online schools or these are physical locations?
No, they're all online. We do not have a school site at all. We have 2 offices, one in Orange County and then one up in San Joaquin County in just south of Sacramento. But those are just offices for admin staff and house cumulative file records and whatnot. all of our instruction delivery is online, and our kids simply need to have internet access.
Now, I was doing a little research here to get ready for our conversation. The program has been around for more than 20 years. Am I reading that right?
You are. We first opened up in 2004, and that was our Southern California school.
And that's amazing, because most people, when they're thinking of virtual schools, online schools, the first thing that they think of is pandemic and online hybrid learning. But your program has been going for a long time. Talk to us a little bit about some of the successes over the years that you've had.
So you bring up a very good point, Jeff. A lot of people think because of the pandemic, these online schools are popping up all over the place. We've been around since 2004. We've been able to learn from some of the mistakes that we've made. We've been able to get better and provide a learning platform that we believe is very successful. Some of the successes, I will tell you a real quick story. I grew up, so to speak, in my career in education in the traditional setting. I've taught Spanish for 5 years, vice principal for 6, principal for 3. I was wearing the green shoes, the green Letterman's jacket, Go Cats, Friday night football games, right? I loved it. Got into the position that I have now. The first thing I did was I interviewed at the time we had about 85 to 90 teachers, interviewed all 85 of them and asked them why California online public schools. And the number one thing they said was the student-teacher relationship. And I was blown away, because here I am from the traditional setting, and I'm like, that doesn't compute to me. You don't even get to see these kids. How are you telling me that the student-teacher relationship is better? And they said, okay, you taught Spanish, right? Yes, I did. When was the last time that you can remember having a 15-minute one-on-one conversation with one of your students about their learning? And I was like, golly, in 5 years, I don't think I had one, right? I mean, that amount of effort that we can do one-on-one, for even though I know only 15 minutes, really, what can you accomplish in that? Think about it. This kid is getting undivided one-on-one attention from their teacher. We are an independent study school. So these kids do their learning and they receive their instruction independently. So that means that they can do it at any time, any day that they want, right? They want to work on math right away at the beginning of the day? Great. You want to work on math at 8 o'clock at night after dinner? Be my guest. Now, we do have webinars where we want kids to log in with their teachers, and there's a little bit of curriculum presentation happening. But by and large, it's independent study. They receive the information at their own time, on their own pace, and then they meet with those teachers once a week for 15 minutes.
I want to ask a couple of the nuts and bolts questions before we get into the meat of the conversation here, because I'm just thinking about the structure of putting all of this together. You are the superintendent in a rather large area. Do you stay at home? Do you have an office? Do you there's no really where to travel to because you don't really have real estate. Like, what does your day look like? And do you get a chance to wear sweats to work?
I do. Right now, this is actually, I can listen to me. If you were to pull all of my staff aside and say, what does Dr. Savage, Richard, wear when he's at school? What I'm wearing right now. I've got my hoodie on. I have a pair of jeans on, and I have a very nice pair of comfortable Hey Dudes. And, that's what I wear just about every day. I work from home. There is no need for me to work out of the office. When I first got hired, I worked out of the office for about 1.5 years. And then it became very evident to me and the rest of our staff, we don't need to work out of the office anymore. We're all going to just move and work from home. That doesn't work for everybody. Some people have a hard time with that. For me, it's been great. It has helped my mental health, honestly. I feel much better, more vibrant. I'm not spending 45 minutes on the road commuting one way or the other. I mean, I seriously have a 15-step commute, and I'm at my workstation, and we're getting after it.
But how does that work? You have a secretary and that person is at their house? Like how does all of this?
Yes. Okay, good. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. So I do have an admin assistant. She works from home as well. My day really is about communicating with other people. And we get on Zoom calls all the time. We also, through email and chat, instant messaging is rather important in our environment. We actually have an internal policy that we're supposed to, the expectation is that we respond to instant messages within 20 minutes. And sometimes people are in meetings or meeting with students or whatever, and so they can't get to that. But that's the expectation. We expect that our teachers respond to phone calls and emails from their students the same day that they get them. Now, if it's at the end,
do they have phones, or are you giving up personal cell phones?
Nope. We are a complete and total Zoom school now. So we have Zoom voice over internet phones. Well, actually, I mean lines. Really, I communicate with everybody through my laptop.
Got it. I'm just picturing like, congratulations, you're an online administrative assistant. Here's your copy machine, or here's your like what does, I mean, I'm assuming, right? I'm just going to be weird here for a second, sir, but I'm assuming you've got a curriculum director that their office is their home, right? You've got a technology director. When you're putting something like this together, do all the students get devices? Do they get a stipend for devices? Are you constantly FedExing Chromebooks back and forth? What does the technology look like?
In Chromebooks, we specialize in Chromebooks. We are actually in a transition right now. Right now, our kids are getting laptops, and we are going to do it a little bit more efficiently through Chromebooks. And we are going to, right now, it's upon request, but we're going to transition over to automatic, and it's going to be the opposite. If a family does not want a Chromebook, they just need to tell us, and we won't send them one. But we're sending devices to and from homes all the time. We also provide internet subsidy for families that need it, or low-income families. We want to make sure that this is a viable option for everybody. And so we provide devices. If a family enrolls all 4 kids, we send them 4 devices, right? We try and offer one-to-one computing for everybody. But you're exactly right. We are, my curriculum director works from home, and they're constantly in and out of meetings, but they're also meeting with vendors to make sure that we have the best that's available, best in class for what we can offer our kids. Our record specialists, our special education specialists, they all work from home, but they work in teams and they work with each other, helping each other. And then, our teachers, we have a very large teaching staff, obviously. Our enrollment is at about 9,500. And so it's quite a large school district when you think, by traditional standards, it's probably about medium-sized school district. But for an online school like ours, it's rather large. And our teachers are all in teams. We engage in professional learning communities. And so they're always talking about students and how they can best meet their needs. But then there is a time for department type meetings where they have to talk about the curriculum and maybe policy if they feel like they need to change or something needs to they need to adapt to something that's come up. So we're constantly moving and working with each other. Collaboration is huge.
If we're looking at a traditional school, and I'm going to be general here right now,
Sure.
Right? There's a building, there's a principal, and there's a number of vice principals that are usually, numbered based off of how many students are in that building. Their primary function is order, behavior, etc. And then you've got your counselors and stuff. How is an online school any different? Do you need more administration, office staff, central people, or do you need less? And how is that structured for you?
So I would say it's about the same. Surprisingly, it's about the same. Now, while we don't have to engage in behavior control, right, or classroom management, discipline is not a huge priority. We do have some issues. Most of them are academic dishonesty. or lack of engagement. If we have a student that hasn't logged in and is not getting their work done, then we focus on that. But we don't have to investigate fights or drug use or anything like that, cursing. Every once in a while, a student loses their mind and actually sends an email using foul language to a teacher. And that's just a no-brainer, buddy. It's right here. We need to talk about this, right? And so, but by and large, discipline is not our priority. Where this is where the advantage lies to our setting. Our staff can talk about kids. Our staff can talk about what kids need. And that becomes our focus. And that becomes where we are spending our time during our day.
I want to ask you a little bit about the whys right now, right? In a previous life of mine, I started to work with a school district who was beginning a virtual program, and they were doing a virtual program for students who, they needed to be at home with their siblings during the day, but they could, they wanted to do schooling at night because of just their family situation. And it was interesting working with that school district, seeing how it was created and developed and started to blossom a little bit. My question to you is, why should parents send their students to an online school?
Okay, so this is where you're going to hear some of my passion. I firmly believe, I like I said, I grew up in the traditional setting, and I firmly believe that the traditional setting or the traditional system of education in the United States and in California is built and meant to please the masses. And I think it does a pretty good job. I think it does an okay job of meeting the needs of about 80% of our students. It does not do a good job for that 20%. There was that No Child Left Behind. I feel like 20% kind of get left behind. I have this a bit of an analogy. Please forgive me. Some of those kids, some of that 20% are square pegs, and they've been forced into a round hole their whole lives. And I've had a few families come to me, and we are the square hole that square peg finally fits in. And I could send you countless emails from parents that have had to have been typing their message through tears. Thank you. Johnny actually likes school again. This school works for us. And that right there, even if it's just 5 kids, that's worth it. It's worth it. And so I think that's where we are a little bit different. We can tailor the kids' experience a little bit. They still, like in high school, they still have to get their work done by the end of the semester because we're credit bearing just like everybody else. Mm-hmm. But where the difference is, like you just said, they want to go. They want to. Their brother or sister has an extreme schedule. We have tons of kids that are child actors on Disney Channel. We have kids. I have a girl that's on the U17 Guatemalan national soccer team. We have kids that the U.S. ice skating. I don't know where this came from, but like I would say probably 75% of the U.S. figure skaters that compete for our country are students of ours. And It was like one tried it out. They really liked it. So that mom went into that circle and they just spread rumors, and then they all ended up enrolling with us. And
so you don't have to be a California resident?
You do have to be a California resident. Yes. Okay. Yes. The girl that's for the U17 national soccer, Guatemalan national soccer team, mom and dad live here, and she is here probably 85% of the time out of the year, but went down to Guatemala to train for about 6 weeks. So this system worked for her because she could still log in, get her work done while she was there. But by and large, the majority of the year she's here. But if she was in the traditional setting, she wouldn't be able to do that.
When I think a lot of teachers think of online education, and again, this is through the lens of pandemic, they think of teachers struggling because students don't have their cameras on, they're not focused, they're not doing their work. Is that the case in your district, or is it different perhaps because the kids, like, this is their school, this is the culture, this is what you do? Or do you still have teachers calling and saying, Johnny's not on Zoom today, Johnny hasn't been on Zoom in the last week? Like, how does the culture of an online school work when that's the only option you have?
So the problem that you're mentioning, and I was there, we all were, right, in 2020. What I had, my own children were in the brick-and-mortar traditional setting. And what happened was you had these teachers that tried to replicate the experience in the classroom on Zoom. And it just doesn't work that way. You can't. That is not a great way to do things. And I think teachers found out really quickly because of what you just said. Oh, Johnny's not on Zoom. Johnny's not paying attention. And they're trying to engage in this classroom management behavior control, and it's just not working. For us, we do have the webinars. They're optional. We strongly encourage our kids to attend them, but we know, like I said, Disney Channel child actor maybe has a call time, and they can't make it during that time. So we record them, and we ask our kids to watch them later. So if a kid's not engaging, if a kid's going to take the time to come to the webinar, they're going to turn on their webcam, and they're going to participate in the chat. And they're going to participate in the student breakouts. And it's because why come? You don't have to be there, right? And so for us, we've noticed that that's really not an issue for us. We just want to make sure we encourage as many kids to come to our webinars as possible. What they can't get out of is that biweekly contact that they have with their teachers. That has to happen. And if it doesn't happen, there's a catch system that we have in place. Wait a minute, this kid, we haven't had a one-to-one call with this kid in over 2 weeks. And then that just triggers some alarms. And then we start calling mom and dad. We start engaging in some other behaviors to try and get that level of engagement that we expect.
Well, are your teachers on a normal 7-hour work day, or are they putting in 7 hours, but it's broken up into various sections during the day?
Pretty much 7-hour work day, it's usually 7:30 or 8 to 3:30 or 4, depending on the teacher and what they want to do. We've found that is normal operating hours for schools. However, we do ask that if we need to involve the parent, that a teacher makes themselves available in the evening when most parents are available. What we have found this is one thing you talked about, online learning. What can you, it still blows my mind that we have TK all the way through 12th grade, right? So we've got 4-year-olds that are learning in the online environment. Now, those elementary age kids, they have to have a mom or dad at home, and they have to have a mom or dad that's kind of watching and making sure that they're logging in and doing some of their work. As they get older, junior high, maybe a little bit, but not as much. And then high school, we found that a lot of our high school kids, mom and dad are at work, and the high school kids at home, and they're incumbent. It's incumbent upon them to log in and get their work done.
There's some things about my career here that I'll never forget. And one of those is I'm trying to be a virtual teacher here for my students. My wife, who's a teacher, is trying to do virtual string orchestra rehearsals and stuff like that. At the same time, my triplets were in kindergarten when all of this started, and we were trying to take care of 3 different Chromebooks while teaching our own kids on our own schedules. That's an experience that I never will ever remember, nor ever want to go through it again. Talk to us a little bit about how that works with your staff. I would imagine that professional development is one of those things that your teachers go through and that you are on top of to make sure that this process runs smoothly.
So yeah, absolutely. Professional development is huge. There's so much I want to say. One thing that our new teachers will absolutely attest to is the level of support that they experience in our setting is by and large way above and way more than they've ever experienced and what they're used to. We do not put, if we hired, I have an experience right now. We hired a new teacher on January, I think she started January 20th. Just now is on her own with her kids, right? There is like a 4-week training. Here you go. Come and take a look at this. This is what we're learning and going through all the different nuances of what an online teacher is. And then they go through a 2-week period where they accompany their supervisor, and they go in together, and they're kind of holding hands with each other and helping each other, making sure it works. And then after 6 weeks, they're off and running on their own. And so we provide that because we know that this environment is different. It's not traditional. It's not behavior management. It's more about connecting with kids on a one-on-one, looking at their work, how to log in, how to log those calls, those contacts that you make with those kids and their parents, and making sure that it is easy for a counselor and or an administrator to see the level of contact and engagement that child is having with their teacher.
When we're looking at putting these schedules together, am I correct in thinking that even though a family, I'll say, belongs to your school system, are they still a part of their local system in case they want to be in band, theater, sports, extracurricular? How is there a relationship that goes between California Online School and their local school district?
So that's a great question. This is one that I get asked all the time. We are more than willing to allow that to happen. We will work with the school district if needed. Oftentimes what we found, though, is that school district isn't so keen on the idea. The reason for that is once a child enrolls with us, we then receive their funding from the state. So we get their average daily attendance, the ADA that belongs to that child. And so school districts know that. And so they're like, well, wait a minute. We've got the string orchestra here. California Online Public Schools doesn't. So our kid is going to them and the state is sending the money to that school. Why would we allow this kid to participate in the strings orchestra when that's something that we've got that might attract the kid to come back to us? And so it's rare that we find a school district that's willing to do that. I will tell you, though, when I feel like I'm connecting with a superintendent that cares about kids, wants to do what's best for kids, and doesn't have an online component, they understand this kid is better served in the online setting, but we do want them to wrestle. We do want them to continue to swim, or we do want them to participate in the strings orchestra. They will, and they'll allow it.
You've mentioned a couple of times if a student is a good fit. Could you define that? Is that academically challenged? Is that student has a disability, and so maybe an online component is there? Is it student is not behaving well in a classroom setting, so let's put him on a virtual? What do you mean by the student's a good fit?
So it's really all of the above, right? Every student's got, not every student has. There are too many issues to describe that our children today are faced with. A lot of times we see bullying, kids that have been bullied and don't see how to avoid that. They come to us. A lot of times we'll have kids that are dealing with severe health issues where they need in and out of the hospital quite a bit. We aren't necessarily, so the kid is not necessarily a good fit for us. We are more a good fit for the kid, right? Where the kid needs something a little bit different, needs something that isn't working. Now, I will also tell you, though, we have mom and dad want to know what their kid is being taught. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times in a traditional setting, kid goes to school, kid comes home. How was school today? Great.
Fine.
Don't really know. Yeah, fine, right? And so in our setting, mom or dad can look right over the kid's shoulder and see everything that the kid is looking at, everything that the kid is being taught. They can participate in that one-to-one conversation, put the phone on speaker. We encourage, if mom or dad wants to hear what's going on, absolutely. And so for us, a lot of times it's the parents. They want more transparency. They want to know what the children are seeing and being taught. I get it. No problem. We can help you with that. A lot of times we have parents that, I don't know, they let's be honest. Some of them think that they've got the next child prodigy in their home, right? Or the next Tom Brady or the next, I don't know, you insert genius here. And they haven't been able to get what they feel like they need or want from their local school district. And so they're a bit disenfranchised. And so they come to us. I don't know if we're always the right answer either, but they come to us, they try us out. And if they feel like they get a little bit more say in what their kids do and how a little more control over the kids' schedule and the work that they do, by all means, we're here to help.
I want to ask a branding question, and you see all these different schools pop up. In your opinion, is there a difference between online school, virtual school? Are these the same thing? Are these different ideas of the same verb? Like, what's your thought on that? Is it all the same stuff?
No, I don't think it is all the same stuff. Yes, there are a lot of different online schools out there that offer education in the online setting in terms of delivery. However, some of the schools pride themselves on complete flexibility in terms of the kid's schedule, right? Some schools demand, like we have our webinars, some schools demand that the kid attend that webinar. And you have to be there. Otherwise, there are repercussions. And so those are the nuances of each school is a little bit different. And I would say that if a parent is looking for their child to have a healthy student-teacher relationship, then California Online Public Schools is what you're looking for. If a parent wants their child to simply log in, get their work done, kind of be left alone and just, operate independently, we would not be the school that they're looking for. There are other schools out there that do operate that way. And so I think that, like I said, online instruction and online curriculum delivery, it is what it is. The subtle nuances and how we go about doing it, I think, are what changes.
When you're in the process of hiring a staff member, let's call it a teacher, what do you look for? Because for most, it's get up and teach a lesson and thanks, there's your demo, and now we're going to have the interview. What do you look for in an online educator?
The biggest question that we ask is, who owns student failure? And if that teacher can tell us, look at us in the eyes, because we do our interviews webinar mainly. The teacher can look us in the eyes through their webcam and say, I own student failure. That's who we're interested in. That's who we want. And the reason why I say that is it's easy. And I trust me, I'm a realist too. I'm not all Pollyanna. I know that it takes a community, and I know that if a child has parent support at home, they're more likely to be successful. I get it. But we have to operate from a perspective that all children can learn at high levels, regardless of the circumstances that they're faced with. And so if a child isn't successful in our setting, that's got to fall on the teacher. The teacher needs to do their job a little bit better, need to reach that kid in a different way, need to pick up our game a little bit and use the tools. Our teachers, and I tell them this, you guys are professionals. You have a teaching credential. That's not just given to people. You're professionals in your craft. And sometimes that means standing on your head a little bit and doing something a little bit differently to make sure that Johnny is learning.
You had mentioned credentials. That kind of just got me thinking, and I don't even know this one. Is there a teaching credential for online education the way there is for math or science, or is there one?
No, good question. That's a really good question. Maybe there should be, but there is not. So, in California, a kid or a young adult decides they want to go to Cal State Northridge and they're going to be a math teacher. They get their math teaching credential from Cal State Northridge, and it allows them to teach within the state of California. That is who we hire. And that credential is no different for us than it is for your traditional school that's right down the street.
Does a teacher have to live in California to be a teacher in your school district?
No, they don't have to live in California, but they do have to have a California credential.
So me in Connecticut, I can apply for my California license and then apply for your school district.
Correct. Now, what we've found is that we started to have a significant percentage of our teaching staff is out of state. Not significant, but we got to a point where we recognize that we need to hire within the state of California, and that's kind of the rules that we've set up. There's nothing legally about it. It's just that we do have some in-person events, and we don't want to pay somebody to fly from Connecticut to attend a mid-year festival or a graduation ceremony or a prom or whatever else. And we do have a certain level of in-person events that require teachers to attend.
I wasn't thinking about that, actually. That's a really good answer. I was mostly thinking of when the pandemic first started, fortunately, or whatever it was, you would see a lot of teachers doing their job, but then on Facebook, you'd see them in Disney World or Florida. Like they clearly left Connecticut and the cold weather that was up here, but they were still teaching their 7 hours. They just went to be with family, or they just went to another part of the world. I'm assuming, I'm sorry, these are tons of questions here, but
it's fine.
Evaluations are the same thing, right? You're going to sit in a Zoom room with your little board and you're going to evaluate me as an educator. And at the end, like, is that how that works? It's no different than any other school, right?
Right. I'll go ahead and let you know. No secrets here. We take one of their webinars. They don't know which one, and we pull it and we evaluate them. And so any one of their webinars that they teach at any given moment during the year could be subject to evaluation. And so that's just how we do it, and they know it, and there really has never been an issue with that. We do have, I will say, some people may view this as a negative about the online learning environment. I view it as a positive. Something like you just said, not going to Disney World, but if we have a teacher whose mom or dad has just gotten a car wreck or is battling an illness, or their sibling just gave birth, and go be with your family, just log in and do your work from wherever you are and continue getting your work done, continue making your student phone calls, continue doing the things that you do when you were at home, and we don't have a problem with it. So long as they're communicating with us and letting us know that that's what they're doing, and also that they're continuing to get their work done. I feel like it's a huge positive because we can put family first and mean it.
And I love that, right? It's making sure that people are where they need to make sure that they're getting the best that they can out of their education. With that, I want to ask you probably the most important question here of our time. How do you know that you're preparing your students the best that you can for their futures?
This is another really, really good question. The answer is we try and we look at how, not just whether they go to college, but how successful they are when they get to college. And by and large, we have found that our kids do just a little bit better when they get to college because they've learned how to become independent learners. Nobody is spoon feeding them because they have a captive audience in the classroom. These kids have to log in because they know they need to log in. These kids have to do their work because they know that's what they need to do. They are in control of their schedule throughout the day. Like I said earlier, English to start, math to finish, vice versa. Let's work on some science, go and run and run a mile and get some PE in, whatever, on their leisure, on their time. What that does is they get to college, they know how to organize their day. They know when it's time to study and when it's time to goof around. And I feel like they are much better at being that independent learner that we all know, those of us that have gone to college, we all know that is really what makes a student successful at the college level, because there isn't a captive audience and there's no do page 257 odd 1 through 39. There's no homework that's handed out. Kids need to know how to study. And so we feel that in our environment, they get that a little bit earlier and they're much better off when they get to college.
I'm curious about what your statistics say. What percentage go to a physical college versus they want to do a virtual college? Do you have a breakdown for that by chance?
I don't have a breakdown. I can give you anecdotal. I would say it's mainly brick and mortar. They go, surprisingly, they will go to a brick and mortar school. I would say that our 4-year university right out the gate, they go to a 4-year school, is probably about, golly, I wouldn't even know. I think it's more common for our kids to go to a community college than it is to go to a 4-year school. I think it's more common for our kids a lot of them to go to like a trade school and then get into the workforce right away. And then the military is always an option as well. That doesn't mean, though, I will tell you that every year I've been at this school now for 11 years, and every year we have at least 3 different Ivy League schools that our kids are going to. I've personally been to 3 different appointments to service academies, 2 to Annapolis and 1 to Air Force, Colorado Springs. All kinds of Pac-12 schools, formerly known as, I guess now. But, it just, there are prestigious universities that our kids attend.
You mentioned that certain students produce what's the right word? Certain students are better suited for an online school, right? And we mentioned that it could be special ed reasons, it could be behavior reasons, it could be academic reasons, it could be family reasons, it could be scheduling reasons. In other words, any student has the possibility of succeeding in your school. We've also said that there's a good possibility that if a student wants to be in a band, an orchestra, a baseball team, or something, that's not always an option. So I want to throw this one at you here. When it comes to students and their futures, what if a student isn't college bound? What if a student really wants to pursue a trade or to be an electrician or something like that? Are there opportunities throughout your program for students who are clearly moving towards that path rather than going to high school into the college traditional level? How do you support that whole child education for students who might not see that 4-year degree after high school?
Yeah. So my answer will surprise you, I think, a little bit. And that is, I think we do that better than most. And the reason why is because we can offer a wider variety of career technical education courses. We aren't bound by that bell schedule, right? Superintendents in the traditional setting, a lot of them are really good at maximizing every dollar that they have. And that means that if I'm going to dedicate this teacher to this subject area for this period, there better be 35 derrieres in those seats, right? And in our setting, well, you want to teach intro to computer programming? Here you go. If they only have 5 kids in it, it's not a problem for us because we aren't allocating resources to derrieres and seats, and it just doesn't matter, right? And so we can offer the macro AP macroeconomics. We can offer what are some of the other? I saw some courses the other day. I was like, wow, we teach that? What is that? Intro to video game design, and all these other courses that are kind of one-offs. We can offer them because the cost factor is negligible for us.
But is every student in your program being taught by an adult that you have hired? Or as an example, if I want to take AP basket weaving, there's an online school that offers that, give that one kid that one class that's belonging to a different system or an online, what happens if somebody does want to take AP Japanese, but you don't have a Japanese teacher on staff?
Okay, so right now, all of our students take courses that are taught by all of our teachers. In a situation like, well, here you go. Intro, this one is legitimate. Intro to video game design. That course, I'll be honest with you, that course is not being taught by somebody that's designed a video game. That course is being taught by somebody that's a little bit more computer savvy, but the course is written, remember, independent study. So that course is written for that kid to be able to log in, go through the lesson tree, read the curriculum, take the tests, and move on. If they get stuck, then they reach out to their teacher. Hey, help me out with this. If the teacher's teaching intro to video game design has never done that, they'll go and find the answer, do the support, and get the help that the teacher might need to then help the kid. So a lot of it, those one-offs, the curriculum is set, and then the kid needs to log in and get it done, and then the teacher can provide maybe sometimes not always expert support, but enough support to help them progress through the lesson.
We're talking today to Dr. Richard Savage, the superintendent of the California Online Public Schools. And Richard, first of all, thank you for fielding all of these questions. You're just letting me have a field day with you here, and I appreciate it completely. I want to throw one more topic at you, and I'm really curious to have your thoughts on this topic. It's the one that's on everybody's mind, every conference session, every single news article. Where do you fit as the online superintendent with artificial intelligence? Where do you think we are? Where are we going? How are you preparing your students, your teachers for a future that is literally in front of us?
I don't know what the world is going to look like next week and in 1 year, right? However, that's not a cop-out. We have to do the best we can with what we've got right now. I am a fan of Chat GPT. I am a fan of allowing a computer to do some of that thinking, some of that word processing, generate some of those. I won't say ideas, because I do think that needs to come from the human mind, but I think that these are tools that can help us enhance and further our ideas and further our thinking. They're tools that we can use the same way that the typewriter came around, who knows how many years ago. Its impact on education is tough. It's not an easy answer because, with all that's out there and academic integrity and what can happen there are ways around that. A lot of these one-to-one calls that I've been telling you probably too much about, a lot of times a teacher can do a curriculum-based assessment with that child right there. Now, can that kid be doing Chat GPT on the side? Probably they could, but I think a teacher is going to be able to assess whether or not these ideas are coming from the child and not from Google or AI or whatever else, right? A lot like, here's another example. I remember 15 years ago, cell phones were a major problem in the classroom. And I think today they still are. However, I think there's still a problem in schools that haven't embraced them as learning tools, that haven't found a creative way to incorporate them into the classroom. I grew up, again, as an educator in an environment where cell phones weren't allowed. And so I spent, as a vice principal, half my day policing whether or not a kid had a phone. I remember as a teacher, walking up and down the aisles, hey, and so what am I doing? Am I worried about kids learning, or am I worried about kids sneaking the phone out of their pocket trying to text? And let's forget that. Get the kid's attention. Make sure that kid is doing what they should be doing, and then you don't have to worry about whether or not they're on their phone. Or have them get their phones out, and let's figure out what Google has to say about, I don't know, the War of 1812 and this battle that happened here or there. And what fact did you find out? Give me 3 things that you just read on the internet, And so I think incorporating those tools into the classroom is where we need to be. So using AI to our benefit is, I think, what is going to help us out the most. Do I know how to do that? No, I don't. I'm not going to pretend like I do. But I do know that we need to come up with creative ways to incorporate these tools. Because if we don't, we're going to get left behind. You know who's going to get left behind? Our kids. Our kids are going to get left behind. And that's a tragedy. We can't allow that to happen.
Richard, I want to say thank you so much for your time tonight. I've got another list of questions that we could go on for another hour. So please come back on the show. And I would love to continue having these conversations. Where can somebody find out more information about the great work that you're doing and find out more about California Online Public School System? www.californiaops.org. That is our school's website, has all sorts of information about who we are and what we do. If you want to email me, rsavage@californiaops.org. I'm more than willing to talk to anybody that wants to know more about what we're doing. You want to pick my brain. I'd love to come back on the show, Jeff. If you want to have me back, you've got some other questions written down, I'd be more than happy to do this. This is, I'm sure you can tell, this is what makes me tick. This is what gets my blood pumping. I love helping kids, and especially those square pegs that have been forced into round holes. If you are an educational leader out there that would like to pick Richard's brain about these things, there's no better way of doing it, in my opinion, than coming on the show. If you'd like to have yourself featured, I'd love to continue these conversations. If you've got a district that's looking to build an online or virtual component to it, please reach out to us over at feedback@teachercast.net. Would love to connect everybody here and continue this conversation on a show. Richard, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. I really appreciate it, and I certainly got an education tonight. Good luck with everything as we go through the year, and I hope that you please come back on the show sometime soon.
Thank you, Jeff. Had a lot of fun. Looking forward to it.
And that wraps up this episode of Digital Learning Today. Don't forget to check out all the great stuff over at TeacherCast. Like and subscribe this show. And don't forget to check out all of our other podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your audio and video today. And on behalf of everybody here on the TeacherCast Educational Network, my name is Jeff Bradbury, reminding you guys to keep up the great work in your classrooms and continue sharing your passions with your students.
You've been listening to the TeacherCast Educational Network, hosted by Jeff Bradbury. Please reach out to the show with all of your questions on Twitter @TeacherCast or online at www.teachercast.net. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And please take a moment to write a review in the App Store.